Hi everyone, Carissa here from the Mono County Libraries. Welcome to our third and final installment of the Spoken Stories series, part of the Evolution of Storytelling project. Today's teaching artist is Sophia Flores, a local resident of Mammoth Lakes. In fact, she grew up here, and she also works for the Mono County Behavioral Health. That said, she introduces herself, so without further ado, I'm going to pass things over to Sophia. I hope you guys enjoy. Spoken word's a really powerful artistic way of sharing stories. So I hope you enjoy your session.
Hi all, my name is Sofia Carolina Flores Garcia, and I will be doing the small little workshop on the power of spoken word. So brief little introduction. I work at Mono County Behavioral Health, where I'm a behavioral health services coordinator. So really what that means is that I get to work with the community, do presentations on mental health, do wellness activities. Some of you might know me from the after school program and summer program Clubhouse Live. And I also get to work with our clients. So it's a really cool thing that I get to do with my job. Go here. So before we step into this workshop, I always like to go over some group agreements to make sure that everyone feels welcomed and feels safe being able to do some kind of conversations like this. We are going to be talking about being vulnerable. So allowing ourselves to step out of our comfort zone and practice some sort of art form here that we might not be exposed to. So a little bit on that. The first one is to keep calm and follow group rules, right? Okay, so speak even if your voice shakes. When you're in group settings like this and you're trying to pick up a new technique or new skill, always have in mind that it's okay to step out of that comfort zone, right? So speak even if your voice shakes, knowing that this is new. I respect member stories. So we all come from different walks of life. We all have different stories. And so we've got to respect where we're all coming from. Respect that we all have different experiences. We are all different humans, right? We all have different experiences and perceptions on those. So making sure that we're respecting that. And also, knowledge is shared outside, but details remain. Meaning, take what you learned from these sessions out with you, but not details. So if anybody ever shares any personal information, personal stories, don't take those details with you, but take the knowledge from it. Okay. So that's my doggy, my little mini poodle. 7 pounds. But a little bit about Mono County Behavioral Health, where I worked. We offer services to all students in Mono County. So if you ever feel that you want to be able to talk with a counselor or therapist, reach out, let your parents know, let your teachers know, and they all know how to contact us. Our phone number is 760-924-1740. We do offer school presentations in groups, so sometimes you might see one of myself or my colleagues in your classroom, either live or Zoom. We do individual and family therapy. We have a substance use disorder program, and we do mandated programs. So usually when someone gets like a DUI or batter's intervention, they do classes with us. But more than anything, it's a place to feel safe and connected. All right, so let's step into it. So what is spoken word? Right, it's the way for us to be able to connect with our story. And we connect with it with our voice, our expressions, and for some, music can also be interpreted into it. So a little bit about it. Well, poetry read out loud was done for generations. We do know that stories were able to spread across different continents because of word of mouth, right? Before we were able to share it with newspapers, before we were able to share books, it was word of mouth. So that's how information got across so many different communities. But poetry itself, the art of poetry, was read out loud to audiences. It was meant for you to connect with the words. Some famous poets like Robert Frost, Robert Pinsky, encouraged people to read out loud. They say that you connect with your audience and you connect with your readings. So this was done and encouraged. In history, it was mostly done by white men. So at least those are the ones that got the spotlight. But then here comes the 1960s, right? There was a lot of things going on in the 1960s with civil rights movements, the Black community, really advocating and being out there to do this movement of getting, seen as equals and getting, better treatment, better services, resources in our communities. So in the 1960s, it was also a huge movement for spoken word in the Black communities. When you look at history, Harlem was like the main hub of the art form. So Harlem was really, right, just an urban area, but that's a lot of times where these movements come from, because it's where folk are together, and that's where really news travels. But anyways, it included culture and music to create spoken word or slam poetry, was what it first came out as, was slam poetry. The reason it connected was because, hey, we have this huge movement, right? As we know, even now in our history, but we are living through it now as we speak, you want to be able to reach out to audiences. Spoken word was proven to be an art form where you can freely speak your mind. There was no restraints on it, right? It wasn't that people were going to judge you by what kind of grammar you had. People weren't going to judge you by what you're speaking, because in its truest art form, you were supposed to speak your mind. So artists felt comfortable by using this in order to bring attention to what was going on during that time. There was a lot of spoken words out there on brutality that they were experiencing. Also, it provided a sense of liberation from social, political, and cultural restraints. So in this movement that was going on in the Black community during this time, they saw how they could really step away from the roles that were forced on them and kind of just speak freely, right? So if you were a Black man, if you were a Black woman, you were shut down. Your voice didn't matter in a lot of communities. And so by being able to really just get up in a stage or just share your art and do the opposite, actually use your voice, have people hear you, that was liberation. So that's what we saw in history, that people really connected with this art form to be able to advocate for themselves, what was going on, or just share the emotions, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So here we have a picture of Stacey Yan Chen. She advocates for intersectionality. She has a lot of different spoken art pieces on herself and trying to find her identity. She's like, I'm a mixed woman, and like, am I this or am I that? And people are always asking, and she shares that, like, that struggle of, well, why do I have to choose? There's so much more. So that's another way that people were able to connect to spoken word, again, just to be able to spread that message that they're really passionate about. Some artists will do it with the words themselves. It really gets you connected with that, like, almost acting side, right? Because you're really wanting to get those messages across. And artists, like, sometimes will put in some music to do a little bit more of the effect. So I'm going to do some examples here. Let me stop sharing right now. And what we're going to be seeing in these examples, the first one is on how this artist uses spoken art. And then go here and share my screen again. This is one found on the PBS website.
In constant action, paddling the canals of the now growing universe.
This is spoken word poetry. It can include music and beats and might sound like rap or hip hop. Sometimes it rhymes, and often it doesn't.
Pink box, 2 shoes, 3 socks, eat blocks, butterflies.
The voice of the poet is important.
Bar after bar, building their cage.
It's poetry created to be performed in front of an audience.
The minds are connected, and the ripples of the fountain stir our collective souls.
Use our voice, be a kill to this world, or watch it destroy. We're stronger than they know. Let your truth show.
I am Deluxe Delight. I'm a spoken word poet and positive MC, and also I'm a musician and a producer and a swell guy.
He's passionate about expressing himself through poems, raps, or songs.
It's not just what you write down on the piece of paper and type up and have other people read. It's adding your voice to the words that you wrote.
As a rapper or MC, Deluxe can freestyle to music or rap lyrics that he's created. He'll start with a beat, add a poem, then pick up the mic and perform.
At first the rhythm hits. Your head's nod and it's kinda odd, but now we're on the one accord. Check the vocal cord vibration. Style steady, blazing like a torch flame or a male claiming to be a demon anyway. Let's play the game fairly, rarely do we see the behind the scenes.
Rap is a form of poetry that focuses on rhythm and rhyme.
Grave, alive, buried by our dreams, wooden paddle turned shovel.
While spoken word poetry, you're not really focused on rhythm, you're not really focused on rhyme. Of course, those aspects can be there, but if I don't keep a steady beat doing spoken word poetry, no one's going to mind. If I don't keep a steady beat doing a rap, it's a problem.
Some internal rhymes. Remember talking about rhyme schemes? So I knocked it out the park, Mantle, Mickey.
Off stage, he also works as an after-school educator in the David Douglas School District.
So I could have said plenty, but I wanted to rhyme with Mantle, all right? Six Flags, Disney, and the person that has the most wins.
He hopes to get high school students interested in the power of words. He's teaching them how to write poems. But for the students, it's like learning to rap.
And then what we're going to do is we're going to be passing around a rhyme. So it's going to be like, boom shakalaka, what? This is what I did when I went to the store. Boom shakalaka, what? I bought something from, and then this person's going to fill in the next word, but they're not going to rhyme.
He wants them to keep the words they choose respectful and positive.
Boom shakalaka, what? Hey, I'm chilling in class. Boom shakalaka, what? When I'm on a track, I run really slow. Boom shakalaka, what?
Hey, now I'm wearing new clothes.
Boom shakalaka, what?
Even though I don't got a lot of money.
The students have to practice speaking on the beat.
I'm going to the restaurant.
Pacing and rhythm are as important as the words themselves.
I am busted by a hat. Boom
Make it easy for yourself. Choose one-syllable words to rhyme. Like he said, restaurant.
Deluxe uses the same technique of brainstorming words when he's writing his own poems or raps. This one starts with the idea of patting himself on the back versus beating himself up.
I'm gonna play with that, see if it goes anywhere.
He starts by jotting down words on a big whiteboard. Phrases and images seem to flow out of the markers.
I guess I'm always asking myself, what does this make me think of?
This type of brainstorming is a critical skill for a poet and rapper. The discipline of writing and following the flow of words gives him possibilities.
I kind of thought to myself, like, well, if I gave myself credit, like, okay, so let's replace credit with like Visa or MasterCard. I would say I gave myself a MasterCard, and then I thought an MC, which would be abbreviation for MasterCard. And I just keep kind of doing that.
The plan is to get ideas onto the board. Then he can discover connections and write a poem.
When I actually make it a poem, it's just, let me connect these points of interest. The most important part, period.
He studied piano and music theory at college. Sometimes his creative process starts at the keyboard.
All right. Back. So the reason I wanted to share that was so that we can see more about, what's going on, what can go on in someone's head while they're trying to get their ideas out, right? So a lot of the times is brainstorming, being able to brainstorm, what we're dealing with, being able to get those feelings down, and then go from there, right? Sometimes it's writing down a lot of the things that are coming up to your head and just write them down first, let them flow out. And then afterwards, go back, edit it, switch some things around, and see what your message is going to be at the end. Sometimes artists like to rhyme, and there's a lot of different rhyming schemes that we can look into. And sometimes artists just like to get words on paper, and it's more about the emotion and the connection. And so that's something else to have in mind as you're writing in your own spoken word is, what is my storage and how do I want to get it across? So we're going to go back here. All right. Go through the slides again. And we're going to see this guy sharing his own spoken word together on anxiety. So we are going to be talking about what is the power of spoken word. To me, the power of spoken word is that, again, there's no restraints on us, right? So sometimes we may feel that people are judging our grammar or vocabulary, how we're writing things down. But with spoken word, that's the art form of it, is that you're expressing you. It's all about you in your message. So here I will be opening up second. In this next video that we will see, this gentleman is going to be not doing his own vision message on what anxiety is. And so that's another thing about spoken word, is that we can really connect with what we're going through, right? It's a healthy way, it's a healthy coping mechanism. So the way that we handle our emotions, it's a healthy way because we're able to pay attention to what we're feeling, bring awareness to what we're feeling instead of bottling it up, right? So we know that with mental health, it's not healthy for us to just keep our emotions kind of packed in. So what this allows us to do is get it out. So I will share this video right now. Now we'll go bye-bye.
Initially, I didn't know what to call it, but I remember when I first felt it, I hated the way it made me feel, but still I couldn't let people know that I held it. It weakened me, but I refused to let people see the weak in me. It felt like it was eating me from the inside out. And it made me want to tear the uneasiness from my insides out. My heartbeats suited for house music, along with the heart pace, each thought race, no route to it. The nervousness, the worry, it sprouts too quick. The panic becomes organic, and I guess I just gotta plow through it. So I do my best to remain calm as the butterflies in my stomach result in sweaty palms. Friends keep asking me why I'm so quiet. I tell them I'm just tired and that nothing's wrong, while all along I just want to go home and be alone. Because large crowds make me feel small and as though I'm in danger, and I desperately try to keep my eye on every single stranger. Meeting a bunch of new people brings so much pressure to my chest, and I don't talk a lot. I often watch and I let them do the rest. Sometimes I'm scared to succeed. I mean, what if I can't keep it up? Scared of how I'm perceived by the people who show me love. And when the news reports another senseless killing, I am soon engorged in an intense feeling. Thinking of the worst outcomes, I worry about my friends and family, constantly wondering if we'll all soon see a tragedy. I'm asking God to protect them and to look after me while I'm looking over my shoulder and around every corner to make sure no one is after me. And I know that's irrational, but sometimes I feel so nervous I don't even speak properly. I know what I want to say, but the message I try to convey comes out sloppy. See, it's the overthinking, the self-consciousness, the sleepless nights, the nauseousness, the feeling as though I can barely breathe. But I try not to be obvious. I feel terrified and paralyzed, and yet I force a smile through all of it. Self-diagnosis, I'm calling it. This is anxiety, and it resides in me so vibrantly, but I keep it inside of me, quietly, outwardly smiling. Inward emotions collide so violently, and if I can be a person who struggles with a moderate level of anxiety, imagine those who deal with it severely and how every day for them is a fight to breathe, a fight for peace, a fight to be okay.
My name is Brad.
All right, so that can be found on YouTube, Anxiety, A Fight to Be Okay by K. Soul. So the reason I chose that video, of course, working in behavioral health, working in mental health, and being able to use spoken word as a way for us to take care of ourselves. That was on anxiety, right? Sometimes it's, yeah, we hear something like that and we're like, yeah, we totally understand where he's coming from, right? A lot of things are said in that video. And so I really wanted to share that and just show you how you can really connect with this, share something that you're passionate about, something that you're experiencing, and get it out on paper. So moving on. So after just a little bit of background on what spoken word is, and showing you some examples of how different artists will use spoken word, I'm going to talk about, who is Sophia and how did she get into spoken word? So that is me on the bike wearing that red dress. This is outside of our house in Mexico. As you can tell by the building itself, it's a very rural town in Mexico, not very rich. And those are my siblings. So I'm actually an immigrant from Islahuacan de Rio, Jalisco. It's a very small area. Like I mentioned, it's not very rich. People just get by. And my family moved to the United States when I was 4 years old. And growing up with my family here in the US, we belonged to a low social economic status. What that meant is that we did not have money. We were on the lower part. So when you're talking about middle class, upper class, we were lower class. So we were a poor family. We had money and food insecurity. So we did take advantage of the resources in town, right? So we knew what it was like to go to food banks, go and rent out toys and then return them afterwards, right? We made sure to use all of these resources. My parents were monolingual and only spoke Spanish. So I had to do what a lot of kids do for their parents who only speak Spanish is I was the family interpreter and translator. So when my parents needed went to meetings, I would interpret for them. We're the doctor's office, I would interpret for them. So that's the role I had to take as a little kid. I had a low English reading level for being an English second language learner. I actually, so the state will give you a test, and I didn't pass that until I believe I was 6th or 7th grade. And I had a trouble with the English language and learning it, and being able to be at the grade reading level. There was a lot of unspoken trauma in my family. So things that happened historically because of where we lived, generational, so things that get passed down from family member to family member. So there was a lot of different things going on in my family. There's substance use and mental health disorders that really controlled my family. And the reason it controlled it is because we didn't have an open way of communicating about it. We weren't just open to talk about mental health. And that's because of the stigma that was going around. Stigma is a bad label that things get, right? So there's a stigma on mental health. You don't talk about it, right? It's shush, shush. And so this is something that I was experiencing as a kid. I have 7 siblings, so a big family. So in my own living environment, it was always busy, noisy. And so with all of this, I saw that no matter what I was dealing with my siblings, right, fights that normally happen, I bonded with them through rap and poetry. And so my older sisters here pictured as wearing the blue top, longer curly hair. Her name is Bertha. Her and my older sister Rocio, who's not in this picture, loved poetry. So I would hear them, read poetry. I would see their books. I really liked it. And then my brother Sergio, who's behind me on the bike, and Ana, who's wearing the pink suit, we bonded through rap. So we listened to a lot of different kind of raps growing up. So we Tupac, Ja Rule, 50 Cent, Lil Bow Wow, back when he was Lil and Lil Romeo. And then on the Chicano side, we listened to like Lil Sancho, Lil Brown, Mr. Capone. So we grew up with different kinds of arts around this. And so what I ended up doing is kind of just mixing them together, poetry and rap. So spoken word and rap, my beginnings. The reason I really liked it is because I was able to get my emotions out. At the beginning, I did focus a lot more on rhyme rather than meaning, and I had to let go of that. So the beginnings were making rap songs with my siblings. We used to do audio loops and then record ourselves over it. I was not the best at it. My brother and sister were definitely a lot more experienced with words than I was. But I kept doing it because it was fun, right? I was bonding with them. I was able to really connect with music, and it was just fun to do. So I went more, and once I let go about the rhyming, I focused on my emotions and the thoughts in my head. I would perform to myself in front of the mirror, and that's usually what happened for years, is just me in the mirror when I would get alone time. Sometimes if my house was too busy, I'd go out and take walks and just practice. And it just allowed myself, to let the passion flow. It allowed me to connect with what was going on, but not connect with it in a way that it was going to overwhelm me, but in a manner of me kind of looking down at the problem. And I think that's the part of spoken word that really helped my mental health during this time. I was going through a lot of heavy depression and anxiety during my middle school and high school years. And I believe that doing, spoken word and rap really helped me kind of step down a little bit. So I didn't ignore the problem. What I did is just look at it from a different perspective. And that's what it allowed me to do. Another thing is that, again, no restraints. There was no one to judge my punctuation, no one to put a grade level on my writing, no one to really judge my grammar. And someone who grew up with having English as a second language, that was big for me. I was able to express myself and not care what people were gonna think about it, right? It was just me and my words. So that's a piece I will share. But before I get to that recording, I want to show you guys. And at first, I didn't want to share you one of my early raps that I did with my brother, but I think it's helpful because we all start somewhere, right? So I seriously would listen to this and be like, oh my gosh, it's so cringy. What was I going through? But at that moment, it was important to me, and that matters. So I'll share a little bit of it. I did this after my first breakup with my boyfriend. It's really funny. But this was a chorus. So what happened was that I was in my brother's room. I was laying on his floor, and we were listening to different beats. Trying to plan out what next music loop we wanted to work with. And we were listening to one. We were with one. I was like, oh, I like this one. And then I remembered a little poem I had written. And so I mixed in the poem with the words. And my brother's like, that was great. Like, let's do a song about it. We ended up doing a rap on it. He did the rapping part. I did the chorus. And it actually turned out really good for us being, I think it was my freshman year of high school. I wish I had that recording still. I believe it is in my friend's old iTunes. So, but I'll share that with you guys right now. So, I wonder if you ever miss me being in your arms. I know I do miss how you'd protect me over harms. I wonder if you ever miss the feelings of our lips touching. All I know is that I miss the moments of our hugging, looking back at the old days when we'd hang out in the park. Of those kisses you would give me, I would dream about in the dark. I will always miss the sweet feelings of your lips, or how you would wrap your hands around my hips. Just know, baby boy, I will always love you. No matter what we go through, my feelings stay true. It was completely auto-tuned when we did it, but that shows you, right? It's not the best lyrics, but I started somewhere. And I think that's the important thing, is that when you're doing your own piece, is don't judge yourself so much. Have fun with it. Just connect with the words. I was heartbroken when I wrote that. Very dramatic, but it got me through a breakup when I was a freshman. So, hey, we use what we can. So I'm going to show you this clip. This one was done, I believe, in late April. I'd have to relook at the post. I posted it on my Instagram first as a poem, just kind of venting. And then I decided to add some music to it. So when we listened to this, what was going on during that time is that COVID-19 hit. You guys weren't in school anymore, right? The students weren't in school anymore. I wasn't working at the office anymore. We had to work from home. People were facing unemployment. So I was helping my clients because they didn't have a job anymore. People were being evacuated from their houses because they couldn't pay rent. And families had food insecurity. They didn't have a job, they didn't have money. Where was food going to come from? There was more movement with the Black Lives Matter, and this is due to law enforcement behavior. So we're seeing some police brutalities, right? There was deaths that were getting noticed by the media, and marches happening. White folk were protesting with guns outside of government buildings to have the economy open. So when we kind of went in through kind of a country shutdown, right, because our COVID was new, people were being hospitalized, we didn't have space in hospitals. So governments shut down our economy, right? Things were closed for a while. And then there were people who were protesting in front of government buildings with assault rifles. And then also my family went through a loss. My uncle passed away from complications due to COVID. And so my own family was going through a lot during this time. And so I made this video. So what I did for this is I actually put up a song that I really like. I actually dance to it when I'm alone, just to get my feels out. But this song is Rise Up by Andra Day. And so I just looked it up on YouTube, put on an instrumental version of it because I like the tune, and I just read my poem. If I did this live, it would be a lot different. I think I would be put more emotion on it, but I was recording myself and I don't do that well with videos. So I'm just going to share it and then talk about it. Times of COVID. You see, this pandemic is really messing with me. And I'm getting fed up with all the news that I see. There's the privileged that are demanding their people be free. Free. You have to be plain, because those constructs on your body ain't a form of slaving. You see, we got brown and black people bleeding every day. Every day. Survival doesn't mean a haircut or a show on Broadway. For the folk, it's keeping hunger at bay. It's keeping up with rent and waking up another day. Damn. And on top of all that, we have to make murder a hashtag. It's not enough that there's a body bag. It's not enough that there's a white supremacy flag. Sorry. I meant a Confederate flag. Yep, Confederate flag. But I guess none of that matters when the privileged stand back. None of that matters when the white attack. And none of that matters when the victim is black. Yeah. And they question me, Sophia, why is everything race with you? And I'm baffled because, the inequities are embedded in our system, and this isn't a breakthrough, and you've got to open your eyes and see it too, because the time of COVID-19 has amplified the racist view. And they say it's fake and it's oppression and it's just the flu, and I guess the doctors and scientists don't have a clue. I guess they don't have a clue. I guess when my uncle was strapped to the machines, I guess when my uncle couldn't do his last breath on his own, powered by those machines, I guess no one actually knew. And with all of this, all I have to say is that you have got to be kidding me. Just sit back and drink your tea, because your privileged ignorance has got into your head. Just enjoy that tea. It's made from the ones mourning their dad. All right. Every time I look at myself, like in a video, I think, oh my gosh, I could have done it so much better. But hey, you do what you can and just keep practicing. That was actually one of my first times videoing myself doing it. I normally do like presentations to an audience, so that was new for me. But that's the thing about spoken word, you just connect with it, right? So as you see on that, like I wrote it incorporating everything that was going on in my life during that time. It was me just grieving, me going through things, upset with everything going on in the media, the news, all around us. And I just needed to really put it down on paper. And that's what came from it. Oops, sorry, that is my dog there. All right. So how do you use spoken word for mental health? So you're using the arts for expression. And this has been recommended by mental health professions for decades. It's been used with art therapy. So children who are nonverbal or can't really express what's going on, they'll do it to express their trauma. And this is with like a drawing form. Also different mediums for adults who are developing and strengthening a skill. So if you have a lot going on in your brain and you're overwhelmed, you would use some kind of art form to get it out, right? You're really allowing your brain to speak. And that's what spoken word can do for you. So it's a healthy way for us to express our thoughts and emotions. When we're doing spoken word, depending on what way we want to do it, whether we want to connect it with music or not, it just gives us that platform to get something across. So for one of the first activities I want y'all to do on your end is an activity based on The Rose That Grew from Concrete. This is a small poem done by Tupac Shakur. So it's, did you hear about the rose that grew from a crack in the concrete? Proving nature's law is wrong. It learned to walk without having feet. Funny it seems, but by keeping its dreams, it learned to breathe fresh air. Long live the rose that grew from concrete, when no one else ever cared. So this poem is about, individuals who may not have the resources, who might have grown up in an environment where no one believes in them. But despite all of the difficulty going on, they made things happen. So now what I want you to do is get this little part of the poem, mad a little bit, and fill in your own stuff in it. So here is my version, and then you can pause it on your end and do the activity. So, did you hear about Sophia, who grew from a crack in the concrete? Proving social structures are wrong. She learned to dance without having feet. Funny it seems, but by keeping her dreams, she learned to leap over fears. Long live Sophia, who grew from concrete when no one else ever cared. So by doing this, by getting a piece that was already written and putting her words, we really just try to get the flow with it. So you guys can pause it now and do this on your own. Normally we would have a breakout activity, do 5 minutes, fill it out, but we're gonna allow you to do this on your own. And just check in, how did that feel? How did it feel to play around with words, right? The first step, just play around with words and see where you're at. Now for this activity, what you can do, pause it, but this is a part of my own piece. And so what I would like you to do is to be able to just read it. Read it a couple times and put some emotions into it. See what's going to come out of it. 1 second here. Yes, okay. I'm making sure I was there. So pause it and read it on your own, and just play around with what it would look like for you. This is just a small piece of a bigger part of one of my own. So I'm going to do an example. We are in the making, made in the US of A, stamp on our forehead, property of the education department, the proud, the mighty, the factory of social construct. Students in line to be processed by the man. Find anything wrong? Just toss us over to the discard pile. Do not worry about us. I mean, no child is left behind in the US of A. No child is left behind in the land of boarded, moldy buildings with vacancy signs and telephones ringing off the hook. And that's a premillennial reference for the white wigs calling the shots of the young minds. Ring, ring to the discarded students with the promise of a good ride. Just a pinch of their hide, and they will be pumped with the good stuff, the liquid gold. And no, this isn't a popping champagne, throw money and make it rain kind of liquid gold. I'm talking about the government-produced and street-distributed, dream-crushing, bandit of all band-aids. Cover up the failed system and blame it on the child kind of liquid gold. He should have been more motivated. He should have been less distracted. The mother worked too much. The father was absent. The neighborhood was dangerous. He didn't have breakfast. He didn't have for lunch. He had rolls in his shoes. He couldn't make out letters. Couldn't tell numbers apart. Couldn't recite his ABCs. He was too distracted. He wasn't motivated. His family didn't care. Kind of liquid gold. The lies of all lies. We tried, but nothing worked, and it's not our fault because we made it known that things had to be done. We talked to the kid. We talked with the mom. We talked with the dad. We talked to the grandma. We talked to the kid. Sorry, let's fix that broken record. And yes, a pre-Generation C reference for those white wigs pretending their policies are relevant to the American student. So the reason I chose this is because I did play a lot around with things that were in a list. So you can practice how to be able to say things faster, how to slow down, just trying to figure out a pace, right? So you're really just playing around with what rhythm is. So you can pause it and do your own. I did want to share one of my right now favorite pieces by Andrea Gibson. She does getting offered a sandwich here. She does a lot of different pieces on mental health. She does a lot of things on being queer, not being following a social, like normal social construct, right? Sorry, I keep calling her she, and I should say they. They identify as they, and so they talk a lot about what being queer is, the different things that they're facing, and so this is one of your own if you want to explore it. Her name is Andrea. Their name is Andrea Gibson. See, that's what we learn about pronouns. Is it's always okay to correct yourself. Their name is Andrea Gibson. This is their poem "Homesick: A Plea for a Planet." And listen to it. Listen how they really just connect with the words, and they do a lot of imagery. So they try to not just put their message across, but what is going to make more sense and make the readers feel what I'm talking about. So that's another thing if you want to look at it. But thank you for seeing this video. I hope that it kind of helps in getting you started with spoken word and how it can really help with mental health. Thank you all, and thank you for the library. Shout out to the library for doing these